The meeting will come to order. We are now holding our regularly scheduled meeting held Tuesday, March 24th, 2015 at 9 a.m. This time, I'd ask you to rise. I will give the invocation to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by our County Attorney, Mr. Dylan Reingold. Please rise and assume an attitude of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to come before you today to conduct the public's business. May we use your guidance, your knowledge, and your wisdom in the decisions that we make that will affect this community for generations to come. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please remain standing, face the flag, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have a few items to that were commissioners on the orders of the day. The emergency item, Commissioner Solari, you are not going to put 14B on?
That's correct.
Okay. That is a no. Commissioner O'Brien, you do want to have 14D1?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add it under my matters, and I think it would be appropriate to move it under the Emergency Services District. It would be most appropriate to be held there.
Okay. Do you have so I don't have to hunt for that?
Yes, sir. That would be 15A3.
15A3. All right. Okay. And then that's all I have. Commissioners, any other modifications?
We did get some additional backup to item 8G, just for the record.
All right. And if there's nothing further, I'll
move to accept as amended.
Got a motion for the orders of the day by
Second.
Commissioner O'Brien with a second for Commissioner Solari. If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. That moves us into the proclamations and presentations, and we'll start off with a proclamation designating April 1st, 2015 through April 30th, 2015 as Water Conservation Month in Indian River County. Commissioner Solari.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Arjuna. You're not going to bring Vincent Burke up with you?
He's sending me out.
He had enough time last Wednesday, huh? Okay, well, thank you for coming this morning, and I'm very happy to read this proclamation designating April 1st through April 30th, 2015 as Water Conservation Month in Indian River County. Whereas water is the basic and essential need of every living creature, and clean, safe, and sustainable water resources are vital to Indian River County's economy, environment, citizens, and visitors. And whereas, to support life, the average adult needs a little more than a half a gallon of water daily, yet each person in Florida uses about 120 to 150 gallons of water a day. And whereas, the state of Florida, water management districts, and Indian River County continue to work together in an effort to increase awareness about the importance of water conservation. And whereas, every business, visitor, and resident can make a difference when it comes to saving water. And whereas, Indian River County Utilities supports conservation efforts by promoting the use of reclaimed water to meet non-potable water needs, such as landscape irrigation and industrial processes. And whereas Indian River County Utilities shows a commitment to water conservation through an established rate plan that encourages reduced usage. And whereas Indian River County Utilities continues to perform internal water audits to ensure system efficiency. And whereas water conservation is the easiest and least costly approach to preserving our finite natural resource. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County that the month of April 2015 be designated as Water Conservation Month in Indian River County, and all citizens are encouraged to use this occasion to increase their awareness of the importance of water conservation and the need to use water more efficiently. Adopted this 24th day of March 2015 and signed by all 5 members of the Board of County Commissioners. Good morning, Arjuna.
Good morning. Commissioner Solari, thank you for recognizing the month of April as Water Conservation Month. And I would highly encourage everyone to do their part in conserving this finite source, not just in the month of April, but every day. And with that, I'm honored and privileged to accept this proclamation on the behalf of the Department of Utility Services. Thank you.
Do you have anything new and exciting coming up in the way of water conservation?
Well, we have the AMI program that, we went actually after cost share funding
You're
for a
gonna have to
pilot
you're gonna have to
project.
tell the audience of what AMI stands for.
Actually, I think of it's the automatic metering, and it's actually what that does is it's pretty much like the FPL smart metering too, but we could detect leaks ahead of time, and that's something that we're hoping that that could be implemented, but it is a huge undertaking. So hopefully the pilot project would be funded by the cost share funding, that we could probably embark on a pilot project and see the results of that.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming here today, and
you.
good luck in
Thank
April.
you.
Always turn the valve off, right? Yes. With Joe. The next item is a presentation of a proclamation designating April 15th, 2015 as Jackie Robinson Day. I will present this to Michael Kent, who is the CEO of the United Way, Lynn Hall, the committee chair, Brady Ballard, vice president of Historic Dodgertown, and also saw Craig here too. I don't know if he's still here or he left, but
He's back there.
there he is. Okay. This is a proclamation designating April 15th, 2015 as Jackie Robinson Day. Whereas April 15th, 2015 will mark the 68th anniversary of Jackie Robinson making his major league debut with the Brooklyn Dodgers, as he broke the color barrier in 1947 to become the first African American to play Major League Baseball. And whereas Jackie Robinson spent 9 spring training from 1948 to 1956 at Dodgertown in Vero Beach, and the Dodgers advanced to the World Series 5 times in those years. And whereas in 1948, Dodgertown became the first and only integrated spring training site in the South. And whereas Major League and Minor League Baseball celebrates Jackie Robinson Day nationally each April 15th. And Minor League Baseball President and CEO Pat O'Connor said, "Minor League Baseball is proud to be a part of this annual celebration of a baseball icon as the St. Lucie Mets and the Brevard County Manatees face off to benefit a worthy cause, the United Way of Indian River County." And whereas the cost of this minor league baseball game is kept low so that it can be a true community-wide celebration. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the board designates April 15th, 2015 as Jackie Robinson Day, and hereby congratulates the Major League Baseball on its work and success in Indian River County over the past 67 years. Adopted this 24th day of March 2015, signed by all 5 county commissioners. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's always fun, obviously, to go to historic Dodgertown, to get at Holman Stadium, and to see professional baseball. We had a ball last year. It was a great game. But the focus of the proclamation that you just read, and something that we certainly don't want to lose sight of, is the reason that we're there. This is a historic figure, not just for the marvelous physical ability that he had. He was a marvelous ball player, but this is a historic figure, obviously, Jackie Robinson, and everybody knows the story, and if they don't, you certainly got to find out about it. So we're very delighted that we can both have fun, have a crowd, and enjoy a Dodger dog in Holman Stadium, but it's also a tribute to a great American and a great Los Angeles Dodgers. So we thank you for this proclamation. I'll let Brady jump in and say anything that he'd like to. I'm certain that we're going to see you all there on April 15th.
In partnership with United Way, Historic Dodgertown, again, thanks the Commission for this recognition. We're very proud to have the event. Again, Michael stated great things about Jack Robinson, and it just goes back to what place Indian River and Vero Beach both had in integrating the game and being at the forefront of a number of things. So we're excited for April 15th and hope the entire community can come out and support it. And again, thank you to the county for all the support that they've offered Historic Dodgertown.
Thank you.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman. I'm not sure how it got omitted from the proclamation here, but April 15th is actually my wedding anniversary. And last year was our 25th wedding anniversary, and they had the game last year, and so my wife was just ecstatic that we got to spend our 25th wedding anniversary watching a baseball game, and she was even more excited when I told her this year we're going to be celebrating our anniversary again at Dodgertown. So,
And April 15th is the date going forward, so we know where you're going to be.
Yes,
you might as well just
and
get it out of the way now.
my lovely wife, bless her, she's resigned herself to that, but it will cost me a fancy dinner later in the week.
There you go.
We will be at Dodgertown. So
That's great.
Super.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Come on up. We got a little. Right. Okay, Commissioners, if I'm not mistaken, that should take care of the proclamations and presentations. Is there anything that we'll move into the approval of the minutes?
move approval of the minutes of March 3, 2015.
Got a motion from Commissioner O'Brien with a second from Commissioner Zork. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion passes unanimously. Anything on the information agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda, and I'm going to pull section or number C or letter C. Anything anybody would like to have pulled from the consent agenda? Anybody from the public wish to have anything pulled from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Seeing none, I'll entertain.
Approval as amended.
I've got a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended from Commissioner O'Brien, and I'll second that. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. I pulled item C, which is the Sector 3 Dune Repair Project, change order number 2, due to the fact that my brother is a subcontractor on that job. So I'll entertain a motion to approve, but I will be abstaining.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval of consent agenda item C.
Got a motion to approve consent C from Commissioner O'Brien with a second from Commissioner Zork. Is there any discussion? Saying none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 3-0 with Commissioner Davis abstaining. Okay, that moves us into constitutional officers and governmental agencies. We have Mr. Smith. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you, Chairman. I'm here today to present to you the CAFR for which is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for September 30th, 2014. I want to start by showing you a picture that we used in the front of the CAFR, which is your South County Recreation Facility. I thought it would be good to promote that, so we used that. If you go online to the clerk's website under Finance, and you can click on the CAFR, it's online. That's the first thing you'll see is the picture of the ball field and the complex down there at the South County Park. Going into the presentation, I want to thank the board staff, the county administrator, the budget director, and my staff for all the work that they did to produce the CAFR this year. We had they completed it on March 4th, almost a month earlier than required. The auditors are Raymond Robson from Vero Beach here. This was the last year of their contract. We do have an RFP going out right now for audit services going forward. More to be coming on that later. We did get an unmodified opinion, which in layman's terms is a clean opinion. There was no instance of fraud or anything found and no material misstatements. And there were no findings for the board. There was a couple comments on the sheriff, but that was particular because of the change in staffing that occurred. I personally have made sure that talked with the sheriff and his staff, and those incidences will not happen again. The internal controls have been put in place, and so we are confident there. The CAFR includes an audit of all the governmental funds as well as the business type activities, and also an analysis of the internal controls, and they were sufficient. The CAFR is broken down by overview. You have the county level financial statements, which includes everybody, and then individually there are the Board of County Commissioner statements, and all 5 constitutional officers have their own financial statements as well. That all comes up into the county level financial statements. This is the county net position, and in other words for that is the balance sheet, and you will see here that the overall net position increased by $11.7 million for the fiscal year ended September 2014. That was a 1% increase over the prior fiscal year net position. The increase in the governmental and business activities net investment in capital assets was due to the road construction, the 66th Avenue completion, the recreational park, which we showed you before, the completion of the project so far at South County, and the public safety, the crime scene unit and the compound there was completed, and also the driving range improvements at the golf course. The decrease in restricted net position was because we finished the road projects. We had restricted cash for the road projects. As we spent that money, we unrestricted it, and so that's where we're at with that. The increase in unrestricted governmental activities was largely due to a reduction in the sick and vacation accruals. We had 32 tenured employees retire last year, and so that sick and vacation accrual went down considerably, and that's what the increase in unrestricted refers to. The decrease in restricted and increase in unrestricted in the business type activities is a effect from a gap change in the way that we are restricting the impact fee fund and the assessment fee fund and the utilities. GAAP now require, which is generally accepted accounting principles, require now that there be a narrower focus in order to restrict assets. And just because the fund is an impact fee fund does not fit the definition of a narrow restriction. So we unrestricted those cash. Another way to look at it is you see the net investment in capital assets is the largest part of your net position, then restricted and unrestricted. And again, the unrestricted increased because we reclassed all the impact fee and the assessment fee funds in the utilities department to unrestricted. County change in net position, another name for this, the old name was a profit and loss statement. You can think of it as revenues less expenses. And revenue increased in both the governmental and the business type activities due to an increase in real estate taxes, which was the lion's share of that was due to the $0.1 billion increase in real estate tax values that occurred in 2013-14. Also, we had 4% increase in sales taxes, which means the sales taxes, we get a share of that from sales tax collections. That went up 4%. 5% increase in franchise fees, and also 4% increase in fees charged by the utilities and the business type funds. Expenses in the governmental activities decreased due to the completion of various road projects, grant programs, and also the sick and vacation accruals that I mentioned a few minutes ago. In addition, in 2013, we had to write off the remainder of the beach restoration project because it was damaged by Hurricane Sandy. So we didn't have that write-off in 2014, so that's a reduction there as well. You will see that in the line item under culture/recreation, the decrease in expenditures there. Expenses in the business type activities increased largely due to new utility renewal and replacement projects, additional solid waste engineering and depreciation costs, and the golf course maintenance project. Revenues by source here, you can see that property taxes makes up the largest share of the revenue for the county, followed closely by operating grants and sales and use taxes and charges for services. In the charges for services went up this year because the court fees that I collect as part of the fines and court costs have been reclassified to charges for services under the new way that the state is requiring clerks to report their collections on court fines. Previously, we reported that as an operating grant and contribution, but now we report that as revenue for the county, and that's as charges for services. So that's the reason for the significant increase there. That was $2.3 million. Property taxes increased $5.7 million. Again, that's due to the lion's share. That is the increase in the property tax values. Sales taxes increased $900,000. Franchise fees were $500,000, and other revenue decreased from the prior year because in the prior year we received a one-time settlement of refund of interest on the DOT State Road 60 project. We didn't have that in 2014. So you can see the review of the expenditures. The largest share is public safety, followed by transportation and general government expenses. General fund comparison. This is just for the general fund itself. Total revenues increased 7.7% and expenditures only increased by 2.8%. So you did a good job there of not spending all the revenue that we were able to bring in. Transfers out decreased 21% due to the reclass of the capital of the court fines, the $2.3 million, and also a transfer out to pay for the spring training bonds that were paid off in fiscal year 2013. Your debt update. Debt continues to decrease. Normal debt service payments represent the reduction this year, and it was about $7 million. You'll see that the largest debt is the limited GO bond series of 2006. It decreased almost $4 million, $3.4 million. The water and sewer series 2009 bonds decreased by almost $2 million, and these are reflective of the bond payments that we made during the year. The water and sewer series 2005 bonds decreased almost $2 million, and the spring training bonds decreased just over $400,000. After there is an early call provision on the 2005 water and sewer issue. After the 9/1/15 payment, the balance on that series of bonds will be $14,205,000. There is an early call provision. Staff is looking at that as we speak. The next slide shows our utility debt coverage ratio, which is a requirement in the bond covenants that we maintain at least a 1.2 minimum debt service ratio, which means revenues available to pay the debt service versus what the debt service is. You can see that we're 2.63, more than twice what we're supposed to be, and that has been increasing every year. So that's a good thing. We're bringing in more revenue, and the debt is going down, so that means the debt coverage ratio will be increasing. Some initiatives we have for the next year is increasing the number of electronic payments that we're going to be making to vendors. You get a rebate on everything that we pay electronically, and that rebate this year was over $105,000. We're hoping to increase the vendors' payments so that we can get that increased as well. We have a link placed on the board's website for the board and the clerk's unclaimed property, which is checks we issue to vendors and that go uncashed. The state requires us after a year, if we've not been able to get contact with that person or vendor and get a replacement check issued, we have to transfer that money to the state of Florida, and it becomes abandoned property. We're hoping to modernize the official documents of the board that we keep in the clerk to the board's office with new software, and also for minutes. We have a proposal, and we are researching our requirements there and checking out all of our options. The county has received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for 31 straight years, and we have no reason to believe that that will not occur again for September 2014. There's some interesting, that's the last slide I have, but there are some interesting facts I'd like to go over with you before I ask for questions. The population in Indian River County increased 1% during the fiscal year, up to 140,955. But also included in that, and this is the thing that I thought was pretty interesting, was according to the University of Florida Bureau of Economic and Business Research, persons aged 45 to 64 made up the largest percentage of the population in Indian River County, followed by persons over age 65. The median age of Indian River County is 49.1, and that is 20.6% above the state median average and 32.3% above the national median average. So the reason I bring that up is it's going to require more, as the age increases, that's going to require more services in the county to provide to address the aging population. Again, I said that the property tax values increased slightly from $12.7 billion to $12.8 billion. And construction activity saw a 23% increase in building permits being issued during that fiscal year. So if there's any questions, I'll take them now.
Commissioners, any questions?
Not a question, just a statement. Again, Jeff, job well done. And I said this last year, but I think it's important that as we go about and we talk about economic development and stuff, to highlight the fact that the county is in just such a strong financial condition, that we have excellent audits, we have ample reserves, we have low debt. We have all of these economic indicators that says this is a very strong local government, and that if you want to open your business here, there's going to be stability and things like that. I think it's just important that as we highlight all the other great things about the county, that we keep talking about the financial position we're in. And thank you to you and all your staff for doing all this. And I know that Mr. Baird and Jason and everybody else, keeps a line on expenses and puts us in this very strong financial condition. So thank you for all you've done.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. And I'd like to mention that you all deserve credit with your staff, Joe Baird and Jason Brown as well, because during the lean times, you made the tough decisions, you took the steps necessary to keep us in that excellent financial position. And where other counties were more liberal in using fund balance and everything else to balance their budget, you took the necessary steps, cut staff, cut expenses, delayed capital improvements, that kind of thing. You made the hard decisions, and you ought to be congratulated for what you did as well. So I would like to publicly thank my staff, Finance Director Diane Bernardo, Assistant Finance Director Alyssa Nagy, and Rayanne Cohn, Senior Accountant, and my internal auditor, Ed Halsey, for the work that they do to prepare this. And I'd just like to thank everybody for that. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Jeff Smith's staff and Jeff himself. They're exceptional. They're excellent. He's got an excellent staff, and they're just great to work with Jason, and they do a good job. I couldn't speak more highly of how professional they are.
Super. Thank you.
Good job.
Yes.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Yes.
I'd like to thank you and your staff, too, and ask you if you could send an electronic copy of your presentation to all the county commissioners.
Sure. We'll have that done. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay. Now we'll move into the public hearing portion of the agenda. And this is a quasi-judicial hearing. So at this time, the next item on the agenda is a request by the Faith Baptist Church, Incorporated of Vero Beach, Florida, for a special exception use approval for a modular office addition. This is a quasi-judicial proceedings. The parties to the proceedings are Indian River County and Faith Baptist Church, Incorporated of Vero Beach, Florida. At this time, I will ask each commissioner to disclose any ex parte communications they might have had, or visits, or independent visits for investigations. Confirm that the commissioners have an open mind and are able to base their decision on the evidence presented and applicable law. Commissioner O'Brien?
I do not have any ex parte communications or visits, and I can and will have an open mind.
Okay. Somebody called me about this probably about a month and a half to 2 months ago, and I do not remember who it was. There, okay, I do now. Thank you, Mr. Durrell. And so thank you. I forgot. I remember somebody talking to me about it. And I did drive by the site yesterday, but am able to have and to keep an open mind. Commissioner Zort.
Yes, no ex parte communications. I frequently drive the site. Didn't know it was on this agenda till it appeared here today. And can have a clear and open mind, sir.
Commissioner Solari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No ex parte communications. I've certainly driven by the site, but not in relation to the issue at hand, and we will be able to have an open mind.
Okay. At this time, it's not on here, but I'm going to go ahead and say this is an appropriate time for the swearing in. Is there if anybody that wishes to speak on this issue, if you would, please rise and be sworn in by the clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we will close this meeting and open the public hearing. Stan, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Stan Bowling, Community Development Director. This is a special exception use because of the location of the church in a single-family zoning district, and what they are proposing is an expansion of 10% or greater, so that will be going through the special exception process and is almost concluded. There are special criteria that apply to expansions of churches in residential zoning districts. Appropriateness and compatibility of the use are looked at, and there are two public hearings, one before the Planning and Zoning Commission, which has already been held, and then this public hearing this morning with the board. And the Board of County Commissioners is to approve the request. They can approve the request with conditions or deny it. The location of the subject site is along the north side of State Road 60 between 79th Avenue and 80th Avenue. You can see from this location map the tract itself that the church sits on is zoned RS6, residential single family up to 6 units per acre, and it's surrounded by residential development. This is a fairly recent aerial of the site itself. You can see the pre-existing conditions. The church has been there quite a number of years with an existing parking area sort of along the State Road 60 frontage, and then an L-shaped church building and some other more minor structures on the site. The proposal is to actually put a modular office building for the church use in this location here, and then some additional parking, overflow parking on the east side of the property itself. And you can see from the aerial, again, it's within the context of a residential neighborhood, but it is right on State Road 60. Again, the proposed improvements, a church office here on the west side, and some stabilized spaces, overflow spaces, which are allowed by code for churches on the east side of the particular parking area. Again, the whole site itself is grandfathered in for the uses that are there, but for the proposed development, there are some landscaping improvements that will be in place to screen adjacent residents from the proposed modular building and from the overflow parking that's proposed as well. And those include a 30-foot wide Type B buffer that we apply to churches. You can also, just wanted to point out that the modular office building is for church office use. It is a pitched roof, and will meet the requirements of the State Road 60 corridor. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this application in February and voted 5-0 to recommend that the board approve the special exception use request with the conditions that staff have recommended. All of the land development regulation requirements are met. The general and specific land use requirements are met, and those are all reflected in staff's report. And the State Road 60 corridor requirements are met with the condition regarding the roof material type. Staff's recommendation is that the board grant the special exception use request with the two conditions that are in your staff report. One relates to the roof material, which could be metal and also have an option for dimensional shingle, asphalt shingle, and also the landscape improvements that are shown on the site plan. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you all might have.
Commissioners, any questions of staff?
No, sir.
Seeing none?
Yeah.
Yes, go.
I just have one.
Yep.
Is there any idea what the use of the modular office building will be?
The proposed use is for church administration purposes.
Okay, so it's church administration, so it wouldn't be doing anything which would add to Sunday, the amount of people you'd expect for Sunday services?
That's exactly right, and that's a good point. The sanctuary space itself is not expanding with this proposal, and in fact, the applicant has agreed to add some additional overflow parking to bring the entire facility up to our current code.
So basically, because of the addition, we wouldn't be expecting more people coming to the church on a Sunday.
That's correct. At their peak parking time, that's correct.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Okay. Is any presentation by the church? Okay. Any public comment? Anybody from the public wish to address this? Okay. Stan, any closing remarks?
No, sir.
Gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, I think that based on the plan, especially with the landscape, and I think the whole thing is going to enhance the community significantly. Okay. So I'm happy to move with staff recommendation, including the 2 conditions.
All right, let's go ahead and close the public hearing. Then
I thought you did. I'm sorry.
No, that's quick. No
rushed
worries.
into it.
That's the worst that happens today. We're having a good day.
Dang.
So, okay.
Still recovering from Friday.
Isn't that the truth? This is a cakewalk. Okay. At this time, I will close the public hearing and let the record show that ample opportunity to address this issue has been provided to all. Now I'll entertain that motion, Commissioner Solari.
I'd like to make the same motions for staff recommendation, noting that I believe that this is actually going to improve the condition of not just the church property, but the property for the neighbors with the 2 staff conditions.
Okay.
Second.
I got a motion from Commissioner Solari with a second from Commissioner Zork. If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. Sorry, I didn't remember. It was either you or Greg Smith that came in my mind, so I apologize about not remembering that, Mr. Durrell. Next moves into the consideration of the county-initiated amendment to the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 902, Administrative Mechanisms, and Chapter 915, the Plan Developments, to grant Planning and Zoning Commission the authority to approve certain modifications to plan developments, setbacks, and other dimensional criteria, and the powers of the Board of Zoning Adjustments to grant variances. Memorandum dated March 9th, 2015, found on pages 67 through 90 in your backup. Stan, welcome.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. This is one ordinance amending the land development regulations that deal with 2 changes to the powers of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Both are items that you all have seen before and, in fact, have endorsed, and so they are county-initiated. One is for the Planning and Zoning Commission to take over the duties of the Board of Adjustment for zoning matters, so they'll have the authority to grant variances and allow the dissolving of the Board of Adjustment. The second item is to allow the Planning and Zoning Commission to handle minor modifications to PD setbacks, still with a public hearing, but without requiring a public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners. The first item I just wanted to refresh your memory on and let the audience know that this particular change was directed by the board to streamline the process, and it came about as a proposed change to setbacks on certain lots internal to the Marsh Island development here within the lagoon. And again, these were some minor setback changes that related to lots internal to that particular project around the marina, and that was approved unanimously by the Board of County Commissioners. It had the support of the Planning and Zoning Commission. It dealt with setbacks for rear yards adjacent to the marina. And at the time that this came through to you all, it went through our existing process and our existing code, which requires a hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. And the reason for that existing process is that there can be times where there are compatibility concerns, and so it goes through the public hearing process to make sure that those compatibility concerns are addressed. In the case of the marina proposal, though, I think the Board of County Commissioners saw an opportunity to streamline the process. So the proposed amendment that's within the ordinance that's before you this morning would require a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission, but no hearing before the Board of County Commissioner for minor changes to PDs like what we had with the Marsh Island proposal. And there are 3 important criteria that are in the proposed change. One is that the proposed change cannot affect lots or units on the perimeter of the PD project. And that would just mean simply that you've got internal changes that someone on the outside of the project would not see. So it eliminates outside compatibility issues. We also have a reduction limitation to 20% from the original approved setbacks in a PD, and that's to make sure that they're basically minor in scale like the Marsh Island item. And also that it's supported by the Property Owners Association or Architectural Board of the project, and that's to make sure that there aren't any compatibility concerns internally within the project itself. So those are the criteria, and we do get requests like this that I think would go through the process, and they would save time if you all adopt this proposed portion of the ordinance. A second item is for variance authority, to have the Planning and Zoning Commission authority to grant variances and to be able to dissolve the Board of Adjustment. We reported to you all earlier that the Board of Adjustment does have the authority to grant variances, and that authority is necessary, but it's very rare that those type of situations ever come up. In fact, we've only had 2 in the last 10 years, and that's for a variety of reasons that we've reported to you all before. There are very strict criteria. Staff level variances are allowed, and we also have just fewer variances because we have form board survey requirements that have been in place for a number of years. The membership of the Board of Adjustment has been difficult to maintain, and there is no current quorum for it. The Planning and Zoning Commission has experience with various type of issues, and so the proposed change, I think, makes sense in terms of the P&Z fit. The proposed ordinance would add to the P&Z the powers of the Board of Adjustment. They would essentially sit as the Board of Adjustment if needed, much like you all sit as other types of boards like the SWID board and so forth. And it also codifies a practice that we've had, and again, it's very rare, but a variance, an appeal could be made of a variance decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission to you all, the Board of County Commissioners. That's in the proposed ordinance as well. No changes to the variance criteria. And in addition, we've attached a resolution that we'd ask for you all to approve, which would dissolve the Board of Adjustment, again, with the recognition that the Planning and Zoning Commission would take on that board's duties. The Planning and Zoning Commission looked at the proposed ordinance and the changes, and they voted unanimously each time they looked at these issues to recommend that you all adopt the changes that are in the proposed ordinance. Both items are in the one ordinance, so you can approve them both this morning if you adopt that ordinance. And again, staff recommends that you adopt the ordinance that's attached in your staff report, that you also adopt the resolution dissolving the Board of Adjustment, since the Planning and Zoning Commission would take on their duties. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? I'll start out with some. That Marsh Island was a good example of a bureaucracy slowing down something that just over-engineering it, in my opinion. And so whenever I saw that, I mentioned this to that there's got to be a better, faster, cheaper way of getting this same thing done. And also, at the time, I don't know if you all remember or not, Mr. Bob Bruce agreed. He was a former Planning and Zoning Commissioner and said that this is something exactly that P&Z should and could handle. So I'm happy to see us slim down this little part of our bureaucracy. Any further discussion? Okay. Anybody from the public wish to comment? Yes, Bob, welcome. Mr. Paladin, welcome.
Bob Johnson, Corwin Subdivision. What is the number of members requirement for the P&Z?
The Planning and Zoning Commission has 5 members and 1 non-voting member representing the school board.
There's not 7 members on?
Not in the county, no.
So there, we continue. So 5 is the.
I did too.
Okay, that's
sorry.
I thought because it would continue to. I thought it was 7.
No, I'm sorry. I misspoke. We have 7.
Okay. Yeah. 1 from each district.
We're going to have 5 this Thursday night. We just took a poll, so I'm sorry.
2 at large.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because the last couple approvals have been 5 members. It seems like if the P&Z is supposed to be 7 members, then 7 members ought to be part of the P&Z. I don't know what the requirement is for the absence of 2 members. I don't know if they've been appointed yet or not for the P&Z or not either. That could be a change, but. Okay. And like today, we have 4 members. Is this a qualified?
Yes, we've established a quorum when we hit 3.
For approval of a change of an ordinance?
We have a quorum.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Paladin, welcome.
Commissioners, gentlemen, ladies. 2 points here. Number 1, I agree with that. I don't think any developer or builder has been before P&Z any more than I have in the past 15 years. They do a great job. They're very qualified, and they work with staff very well, and I agree with these changes. And secondly, as a matter of disclosure, I am the spokesman and the point person for Marsh Island. I also maintain an interest. So I want to make that clear. And I agree with everything that you all voted on, or you will vote on. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Okay, Commissioners. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the proposed ordinance to amend the LDRs and to adopt the attached resolution as per staff recommendation.
Got a motion from Commissioner O'Brien with a second from Commissioner Zort. We'll proceed to vote if there's no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That moves us all the way down to... You pulled, there is no, that moves us into Public Works presentation. The presentation of Indian River County's 2014 Beach Preservation Plan Update. Found memorandum dated March 17th, 2015, found on pages 91 through 96 in your backup. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Mora, Public Works Director for the county. What we're looking at today is this is the third update of the county's beach preservation plan, a plan that was first prepared in 1988. I'm going to introduce, I'd like to introduce James Gray, our coastal engineer, who will walk us through it, and also introduce our coastal engineering consultant.
Good morning. For the record, James Gray, County Coastal Engineer. We also have Gordon Thompson and David Swigler from CB&I Coastal Planning and Engineering, which is our coastal engineering consultant who prepared the latest update to the beach plan. For nearly 30 years, the county has had a beach management strategy that provided beach strategies for abating coastal erosion along the county's 22.5 miles of shoreline. What we have today is the presentation of the 2014 update to this beach preservation plan. The plan is usually updated every 5 to 10 years and includes new technologies or new understanding of trying to look at different strategies, different alternatives to abate the erosion. The latest update actually included numerical modeling to analyze the use of hard armoring structures such as coastal armoring structures, breakwater seawalls, and groin systems. The county in the past has been using just soft alternatives. So the direction to staff back in 2011, 2012 was to include in this latest update modeling and so forth for coastal structures. And I just wanted to note that this document is an advisory document only, and approval of this document does not commit the county to following the strategies under this document. But again, it's a management tool, and this tool will be available to the public on our county website once approved. So moving into the presentation, I'd like to introduce again Gordon Thompson from CB&I.
Thanks, James. I'm a director with CB&I Coastal Planning and Engineering, Inc., and I'd like to thank you for inviting us here to present this plan to you today. As James said, this is the 2014 update to the Beach Preservation Plan. Quick spoiler alert, I'm going to start with the summary of our findings. So overall, the Indian River County beaches are a major driver of the economy. The county, along with Sebastian Inlet District, have done an excellent job of managing its beaches over the last 11 years. And the recommended plan is to continue to bypass sand around Sebastian Inlet and to place beach fill along the erosional sections of the shore. Overall, under this plan, the capital outlay to the county to maintain the beaches is about $5 million per year. Just taking a quick look through the county and how we broke the county up into various sections. Here's a location map. Obviously, the northern end of the county being Sebastian Inlet, and to the south, St. Lucie County. Sectors 1 and 2 is where Sebastian Inlet District bypasses sand from the inlet to the adjacent beaches. Sector 3 is Wabasso Beach, where we're just finishing the Sector 3 beach restoration project. Sector 4, Sector 5 is Vero Beach. Sector 6 is the Rio Mar area. And then Sector 7 and Sector 8 further to the south. Of interest to the county is that there are several sections of the shoreline that are deemed to be FDEP, critically eroded areas, and these areas are eligible for state cost share. So sectors 1 and 2, a large portion of sector 3, and then sector 5 in the Bureau's beach section, and then sector 7 and the northern portion of sector 8. So the outline of presentation today is the purpose of the BPP, the economic benefit of the county's beaches, a look at the performance of the beach over the last 11 years, the management strategies that we evaluated, along with the recommended plan and recommendations. So we were tasked with evaluating the condition of the county's coastline, and specifically, as James mentioned, to identify cost-effective alternatives to maintain and improve the sustainability of the beaches. Approximately 1.9 million visits are recorded to the county's beaches each year. And looking at the breakdown of that, approximately 45% of those beachgoers are residents of Indian River County that are here resident for at least 6 months out of the year. Seasonal residents, and we're defining that as residents that live in the county between 3 and 6 months, account for 17%. And visitors, those that spend less than 3 months in the county, are approximately 38% of the beach-going public. The oceanside hotels generate about $16 million annually. And when you add that to the expenditures of the remainder of the public that's going to the beaches provide a total recreational value of approximately $33.2 million per year annually. The property along the beachfront is also very valuable. Approximately 17% of the beachfront property, or 17% of the property in the county, is about 17% of that is the beachfront property value. During the development of the plan, we solicited the input from the public in several planning charrettes, and I'm just drawing out a few of the comments that were provided. Maintain the beaches. They are the economic engine for the state of Florida. Maintaining the beach is beneficial to the entire county. And beach maintenance is a win-win for all parties: people, turtles, shorebirds, and infrastructure. So moving on to how the beaches have performed over the last 11 years. And Indian River County and the Sebastian Inlet, it's been very effective, as I will show here in the next couple of slides. Without any management efforts, the average shoreline change might have been about a recession of 1 foot per year, which doesn't sound like much, but when you start looking at 10 to 15 feet over that time period, that can be a significant portion of the shoreline. However, with the efforts that have been undertaken, we've measured an average of about a 2.6 foot advance in the shoreline location. Unfortunately, this is an average through the 22.4 miles of the shoreline, and some areas still need to be addressed, but the majority of the coast is doing very well. As a coastal engineer, I prefer to look at volumes and not necessarily shorelines, because shorelines can vary through the season and following storm events. So we look at volume. And what you see on this graphic in front of you, to the left is Sebastian Inlet, and to the right is the south end of the county. In red are areas of the shoreline that would have experienced erosion without management of the county's beaches. However, due to the efforts put forward by the county and the Sebastian Inlet District, you can see that large portions of the shoreline are stable to accretion areas shown here in green. And I will just toggle between these so you can see the benefit that has been accrued. And specifically, you can see in sectors 1, 2, and 3, we've gone from an erosional area to stable to accretional. Similarly in sector 7. And sector 4 is one of those areas that we're taking a closer look at. So the management strategies that we evaluated, obviously we look at no action. What happens if the county decides not to continue with the beach program? We also looked at beach fill, and two types of beach fill. One where we place sand only above the mean high water line, similar to what we're just wrapping up in sector 3. The second one is a larger beach restoration. This is an aerial from the sector 2 2003 beach restoration project. We also looked at structures. These are rubble mound groins. We looked at permeable adjustable groins. We looked at breakwaters. We also looked at PEP reefs. And PEP reefs, as you're probably aware, offshore of Vero Beach. And we took each of those different strategies and we evaluated it by sector. And we looked at it from a total cost perspective. So we have the cost to actually construct the project. We have the recreational benefit, the loss of recreational benefit as a cost, the cost of shoreline retreat and the loss of that land, as well as probable storm damage. And we evaluated that over a 30-year time period, annualized it to give us a single individual number. And so this is one of the outputs we have. This is just looking at Sector 8 as an example. But on the left side is the no action alternative. And you can see that the cost to doing nothing are threefold. You have the annual retreat damage, which is just that 1 foot per year erosion that will eventually work its way back to some of the houses. You have probable storm damage, as well as a recreational loss. Then we looked at the various strategies. And for that, we have the direct project cost, the construction cost, which is shown in blue. Several of these strategies, we still have probable storm damage because we simply cannot place enough beach fill to avoid all of those because of the nearshore resources. And as you can see, the cost of these alternatives will vary from beach fill into the structural alternatives. And then we add up each of the alternatives and look at it across the county. And what we found is beach fill is the most cost-effective management strategy. The recommended plan will reduce but will not eliminate storm damage, as I discussed. And we expect the plan to reduce storm damage by approximately $3 million per year. Obviously, this is not every year, but if you have a large storm event such as Francis or Jean, you'll incur that cost in 1 year, and we've just annualized that out. As I also mentioned, the beach fill is limited to avoid impacting the offshore reef. That was one of the key elements that came out of talking to the public. So the cost of the recommended plan is approximately $8.2 million per year. We've separated that and looked at the breakdown. The county would shoulder the larger portion of this, which is approximately $5 million per year. Sebastian Inlet District is looking at about $2.3 million, and the state cost share is just under $1 million. For each dollar that we put into the beaches, though, we expect that we'll get $3.10 back in benefit. So we're looking at about a cost-to-benefit ratio of 3.1. So based on this analysis, it's money well spent. We also compared it to previous plans. The recommended plan for 2014, annual direct cost of $8.2 million. The previous plan from 2008, an annual cost of $7.9 million. Essentially, we're looking at the cost of inflation. We also looked at the beach-related expenditures since 2001, which have averaged $6.8 million a year. Of that, the county's expenditures have been about $1.2 million. And that really is a compliment to the county at being effective at leveraging cost-share percentages. So we've had some storm events. FEMA's provided some funding. The state has come through with funding. And the county's done a very good job of negotiating that. However, moving forward, we're presenting the $5 million as what can be expected without those one-time inflows of funding. Obviously, this is a large number, and so we've looked at potential and preferred funding options. Maximizing state funding, I'm going to talk about this in the next slide or two. Tourist development tax, the local option sales tax, and interlocal agreements such as the one with Sebastian Inlet District. There are other funding opportunities, bonds and leveraging, pursuit of a federal project. We actually met with the Army Corps a week ago Monday with the Beach and Shore Advisory Committee. Municipal Services Taxing Unit and a Municipal Services Benefit Unit. So looking specifically at the state cost share, we can increase the state cost share from 27% to 42% by improving public access. And specifically to improve public access, adding parking at these 5 locations: Ocean Hideaway, Treasure Shores, Wabasso, Jungle Turtle Conservation Area, and Tracking Station Park. You will have also noticed on one of those first slides with the red lines that Sector 4 is not currently eligible for state cost share. And so we're recommending that we solicit DEP to extend what they consider the critically eroded section of beach throughout Sector 4. We're also recommending that the county look at acquiring private property and establishing public accesses between South Beach Park and Round Island Oceanfront Park in Sector 7. We're also recommending that the county continue their monitoring program, which is aerial photography, semi-annual beach profile surveys, characterizing beach sand throughout the county, hard bottom classification, hard bottom edge mapping. And this is all outlined in page 70 of the main report. We're also recommending to investigate offshore bar areas. Some haven't been done in a while, and if a storm event comes through and we want to use an offshore sand source, it would be good to have that done. As always, public outreach and education are a key component of any plan. So to wrap up, again, the summary: Indian River County beaches are a major driver of the economy. The county's done an excellent job of managing its beaches over the last 11 years. And the recommended plan is to continue to bypass sand around Sebastian Inlet and place beach fill along erosional sections of the shore. And the cost of continuing this plan is a capital outlay of approximately $5 million per year. I'd like to thank you for your time and see if you have any questions.
How do we add parking at Wabasso?
We've got a piece of property.
We bought the cattle dip.
Well, yeah, okay. So we can add it on west of A1A and it still
yeah,
count?
that's where that property that we bought from Disney. It's not exactly at the park. It's about 1,000 feet from the park, but they can walk. And a lot of people go there to also start biking.
Okay. You know, we also ought to, in my opinion, try to engage something with the Kennedys on that little piece on the Orchid, right there on the northeast corner.
Yeah, they could donate it. It's its own recreation.
And somebody ought to talk to them about it because it's no good to them. And
it's its own recreation.
That's what I'm saying. So, okay, commissioners, any questions? Mr. Laurie.
Yeah, I've got one. On the state funding, roughly you said it could increase funding from about 25 to 40% and it seems that we need to get more beach access and probably some parking in those areas. Have we done any analysis on the monetary benefit we can get versus the cost to get the facilities needed?
When we were analyzing the parking, what we looked at specifically was maximizing the state cost share and just looking exactly at what would be required. We did not specifically look at the cost of implementing those measures.
Joe, would that be something that would be reasonably possible to do, to get some idea of what it would cost us, the county, in order to, in the future, get the state benefit, possibility of the state benefit? Is it easy to get reasonably rough ideas?
You mean like more public access in Sector 7?
Yeah, say Wabasso. Wabasso might increase the amount of state funding by 5%, which ought to equal some dollar amount. I have no idea, but if it's $500,000, is the cost to get that parking at Wabasso Beach, given we have the property, is it $500,000, or is it $5 million, or is it $50,000? And with those numbers,
very good question.
It would allow us to say whether something was feasible or not. I mean, my guess is if we have the land, like in Wabasso, and it's close to the existing parking and easily accessed by the citizens, then that cost might be less than a place where we had to buy expensive beach access and put in parking that we might not even be able to do, given the limited land and the requirements, coastal setbacks, all that type of stuff. So my guess is, of the about 5 places you listed that we could, if we had the beach access, get more state benefit, that 2 of them may be obviously cost effective, but 1 or 2 of them may be obviously not cost effective, so we could focus on those areas where it would make sense.
Yeah, this board approved purchasing the cattle dip about 2 years ago, which was very beneficial to helping us in the Wabasso area. And Commissioner Davis is right. The Kennedy piece, it would be both helpful for Jungle Trail and our beach count. where we get in trouble is Sector 7's real hard. The neighborhoods don't want us, and they're all private neighborhoods. They're gates.
And we don't have the land, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, we can, in order to assess it, I just want to see if it's reasonable to go to the next step, so that we can start to assess where it might be possible to do something. So then, if we decide we can actually put something in a 5-year plan or something like that.
Sure.
But without more information, I'd just be.
And in addition to that, I guess the obvious question is this, you said it's $5 million a year for us to, for this plan, so that, but not baked in that figure is not anything that Commissioner Solari is talking about as far as parking, or it is?
That is correct.
Okay.
The figure is based on the parking as it stands currently.
Yes. My understanding is we could reduce the county's $5 million a year if we had more points of access so that we could draw more state dollars.
Absolutely.
But that ability to reduce the county's portion each year would be dependent on some initial capital expense.
Right.
So I just want to get some idea of that capital expense so we can do some rough cost-benefit analysis. I'm not asking for exact dollars.
Sure.
But a ballpark so that we can at least know which 2 or 3 areas would be the most reasonable to go forward with.
One of the things I thought, I drove up to Round Island the other day, that's Sector 7, and I realized that we haven't, the Riverside isn't, you could put more parking spots in there. You really could, because you drive a way back, and I think that'd be very beneficial, because on the weekend, the boaters that are there, and that may give us more counts in Sector 7, because the Riverside has a lot of vacant land up by A1A, which we could put additional parking. And I never thought of it until I went down there the other day.
Yeah.
Well, I have one general question. How come Sector 3 is disproportionately linear longer than the other ones? Is it relative to the hard bottom, the nearshore hard bottom placement, or some sections are relatively small and some are much longer? And what's the design criteria for those?
The main reason why Sector 3 is 6.1 miles, or it's actually 6.6 miles, is through previous iterations of the beach plan and public meetings and so forth, more communities wanted to be added to the beach plan or beach program for Sector 3. So Sector 3 increased because of that, and it was really based on project-specific boundaries.
Okay. And last question, kind of going along with Commissioner Solari said on the other places that are available, looking back, like when what I call the old Carta estate on South A1A, which falls between South Beach and Round Island Park, that had access off A1A, a wide beach, beach frontage in the back. Those opportunities have come and gone, and they've been bought up by somebody else. But I guess when we're looking, we should just at least look and see if there's anything else that's a potential opportunity down the road. And on the Kennedy piece, even if there's something we have in inventory, we could do a land swap, a land exchange, or something with the, obviously it's been sitting there for quite some time. They haven't used it, but, something to kind of facilitate a land exchange or swap might. We have a lot of kind of odds and end pieces around, seems to be around the county that might be something of interest to them.
Commissioner
But
Bryan?
we'll take it all outright, too.
Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion? Okay, Commissioners? What's the pleasure?
Move we accept the beach plan?
Okay. I got a motion from Commissioner Solari with a second from Commissioner Zork. If there's no discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
That moves us to our legislative update and talking points. This is under the County Attorney Matters. Memorandum dated March 17, 2015. Found on pages 97 through 101 in your backup. Kate, welcome.
Good morning. Kate Kottner, for the record, Assistant County Attorney. I am back before you this morning to talk about the talking points that we discussed last week. I've drafted up 4 talking points, and there were a couple of adjustments so that you have new talking points in front of you. There's really not a substantive change to I would say the top three. It's just more, it was reworked. I moved the different paragraphs into different locations and kind of combined things. At the very end, I'm going to talk about the location of utilities, which I think we may need to make some changes to as of this morning. So I also wanted to give you an update on, if you go to the third page, it has to do with hazardous walking conditions.
Just real quick, Kate, hold
Okay.
on. I'm just making sure that that's still not on TV.
Okay.
I don't know if it is or not, but...
There we go.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Hazardous walking conditions. So House Bill 41, there's an amendment that was filed at 6:30 last night by the sponsor, Representative Metz, and it's going to be heard today at 1 o'clock in the Education Appropriations Subcommittee. And what it basically does is it's related to one of the things that we're asking for. In our talking points, we suggested that there be an amendment which would allow local flexibility via an interlocal agreement, and the amendment actually has that. And so it's an interlocal agreement that it would be allowed to address the identification and correction of hazardous walking conditions, but there's two requirements. It must establish the same or higher standards of safety, and it must establish the same or more rigorous process for addressing the safety concerns. So it's good news. One of our main concerns has been addressed, and I know that the Florida Association of Counties has been working on this, so give them kudos. So I don't know if this is something that you want to continue moving forward. Because it's being offered by the sponsor, one would assume that it will be accepted. It still has the Chapter 86 action language. So basically what that would mean is if the school district finds that there's a walking condition and the county believes that there's not a walking condition, just for a hypothetical situation, they can sue us under Chapter 86 to make us address the hazardous walking condition.
Okay. Any questions or comments, Commissioners?
So I guess the question for us to decide is, do we still want to oppose this with the added amendment language?
Yes. If the amendment is approved today at 1 o'clock, do you still want us to distribute this talking sheet to our local delegation? Is the question I'm posing to you guys.
Well, what do you think?
I think that we could take that particular part out and still ask for, the Chapter 86 to still have that addressed. I think that that's still important. I don't know if it will actually happen, but I think it's important that our local delegation know our concerns. That would be my suggestion.
Okay. How about you want a motion on that, or what Commissioner, how you want to?
I don't like the thing at all. Okay. I believe we ought to oppose it, but at a minimum suggest the Chapter 86 mechanism that the county attorney is recommending.
So continue to oppose it?
Yes, and that would be our preferred stance, but at the minimum have the alternative dispute resolution.
All right.
Okay, fantastic. And then moving on to the fourth one, the location of utilities. I've had some discussions with both Palm Beach County and Martin County because I was concerned that this was really going to affect local governments with the All Aboard Florida project. And the way that I've reread the proposed language, and I think it's important to have another discussion on this just so you guys understand how it would affect us. Basically, the way the language reads is that if a project moves forward where roads are going to have to be reconstructed, widened, so on and so forth, due to an outside third party, then that outside third party would be responsible for the relocation of the utilities. Now, in our situation, it would be All Aboard Florida, hopefully All Aboard Florida. But if it's Florida East Coast Railway, because of our contracts, our license agreements that we have with them, that could come back on us. So that is how we would be affected by it. Again, that's just something that this has a very serious possibility of passing. This has a lot of, they call it legs. It's moving through the legislature very, very fast. So that's just something that we need to be aware of and concerned about, that if it does move forward, which I think it's going to, we just need to know as we're going to renegotiate, hopefully, contracts, license agreements. So just wanted to have that conversation with you guys.
So that would mean the someday widening of 58th Avenue and 60 and those 100 kV poles that are $150,000 a piece to move, that means that road would probably never, ever be widened because it would
this will
cost you
affect
$10 million.
This will really affect us on our road projects. This is going to slow up road projects in Florida. It's going to be huge, significant impact on all your projects. Therefore, you won't be able to widen roads like you used to. It's going to bring everything, I think, pretty close to a standstill in Florida. So, that's why the legislature makes such good decisions.
Well, and again, it depends on where it's located. If it's within the right-of-way, then the utility company will still relocate it. If it's outside the right-of-way but inside the easement is when things become a little fuzzy. And it's just, again, it has legs. We just need to be aware of it.
From what Joe says, and what you say, it sounds like we need to oppose it.
I think that we do, yes. But when it comes to All Aboard Florida, I guess we need to oppose it in general. It's going to have significant impact on us. The Florida League of Cities and the Florida Association of Counties are very opposed to this, and they're being outspoken. So our talking sheet would really just support their efforts. But when it comes to All Aboard Florida, I know I brought that up last week, and I wanted to make sure that I clarified how it would actually affect our local community. And it comes down to those agreements. So
if it's inside the easement, if it's inside the right-of-way, it doesn't apply. But if it's in the easement on a private property owners, let's say, I'm trying to think of a scenario, Aviation Boulevard over here, on the south side of that road, there's the City of Vero Beach transmission lines that are in the way of that road becoming 4-lane. So if it's in the Water Management District's right-of-way, and it's an easement that they granted them to put it there, who would pay in that scenario? So it's not in the road right-of-way, but it's in an easement granted by the water district.
By the owner of the property. So it would be, that's the scenario, we would be responsible for it if it's in an easement, not right-of-way.
Right. That's the way that it currently reads in it.
All right, let me ask you this. What if, and I know this is we're doing a road, and the power lines are outside the right-of-way, but in an easement. What if we purchase that easement?
And make it right-of-way.
Make it right-of-way.
See, that's Chris Moore, Public Works Director. That's been a problem that we've run into in the past, where it was in an existing utility easement outside of the right-of-way. The county then purchased the right-of-way with this underlying easement. And that's been an issue for us, where we've had to go ahead and pay to have those utilities relocated, because they weren't originally within the right-of-way.
Okay.
And what this House bill and Senate bill will do, it'll significantly weaken our position, not only in situations such as that, where there's an easement outside the right-of-way, but as Kate was mentioning, when there are underlying agreements, such as within the All Aboard Florida or FEC railroad right-of-way, not within road right-of-way, but within railroad right-of-way, if they move tracks, add tracks, and a utility has to be moved, the railroad can then kick it back to the county through our crossing agreements and make the county pay. And that's where this will weaken our position in getting utilities to pay for those relocations.
Go ahead.
Another question. If this has legs and it's moving through quickly with a lot of support, what could we, if we can't kill it, what can we add to it to lessen it? I mean, what would be, and I don't know.
That's a great question. And right now, there are a lot of people analyzing that. No one has come up with an answer, though. I mean, it's really going to be detrimental to the local government. So
unless they add the words "if we want to" at the end, that's about it.
May,
yeah.
Well, we can run that by our guys up there and say, okay, what can we? And the driving force of this is a Lee County issue. Is that where this?
That's my understanding. It grew out of a Lee County case between Lee County and an electric authority.
Right.
And they were arguing over who was going to pay for relocation expenses involved the utility.
Yes.
Well, maybe they should just make it a local bill for Lee County.
Right. Yeah.
Well, one would think, but they also have at the very end of the legislation that this is in the public interest, and so that goes to if it's going to cause an unfunded mandate to the local governments, they're saying that this is so important that it's worth doing that. So again, has legs. They're preparing it to pass.
So we need an example of what something would cost a lot in the speaker's district to let him know, and I'm just thinking in his district up in Brevard, an example of if you were to do this, this is what it would cost your local city of Titusville or Eau Gallie or Cocoa Beach, or something that brings it home for them to realize, well, maybe it's great for them, but maybe it's not great for the whole state.
That's an excellent suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. You need direction on this?
I just wanted to get the thumbs up to be able to distribute them. I'll do it after 1 o'clock, so I'll wait for the...
All those in favor of a thumbs up, put your thumbs up. Yeah, I think...
Fantastic.
I think it's fine.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you also want to... I know Commissioner Solari mentioned the issue of opposing the hazardous conditions bill, but if that's not capable, then to add in the elimination of the Chapter 86 language. I know Commissioner Solari mentioned that. Would you like a full vote from the Commission on that particular issue or on that stance?
The talking sheet actually says that. It makes a suggestion at the end, so thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next moves us to the Mr. Reingold's shade session. Dylan?
Thank you very much to the Chair and those left in the audience and those watching at home. I'm seeking the advice of the Board concerning the Ocean Concrete and George Mabe versus Indian River County lawsuit. The subject of thus, I would like the Board to have a meeting. The subject of the meeting will be confined to settlement negotiations and also to strategy sessions relating to litigation expenditures. I would like the Board to set this meeting during the regular scheduled meeting of April 14th, 2015. I will be in attendance of that meeting. Joe Baird will be in attendance, and we will have the board members and a court reporter. Today I simply just wish and seek your approval of being able to set that meeting for April 14th, and I will certainly be available for questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
Move approval to set a client attorney session on April 14th, 2015 at 10:30 a.m.
Got a motion from Commissioner O'Brien with a second from Commissioner Solari. If there's no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That should conclude all of that page and move us now over to Emergency Services District. I'll entertain a motion for the minutes of meeting held February 17, 2015.
So moved.
Got a motion from Commissioner O'Brien, and I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That moves us now to, let's go ahead and, isn't this where we wanted to move the 15A3? Okay, you want to do it? Let's go ahead and do 2. Potential lawsuit challenging U.S. Department of Transportation's approval of the issuance of the $1.75 billion with a B tax-exempt private activity bonds for all of Ward, Florida.
Thank you very much to the Chair. As you are aware, at our last board meeting, the board authorized the County Attorney's Office to file a lawsuit attacking the bond allocation letter that had been submitted and distributed by the United States Department of Transportation concerning the All Aboard Florida project. At that time, I had noted in my memo that there were potentially several other plaintiffs, including other local municipalities, local organizations, interest groups, individuals, and also potentially the Emergency Services District. At this time, I would just like to seek approval from the board to allow the Emergency Services District to be included as a plaintiff in such a lawsuit. Please understand that no money will come out of the Emergency Services District funds for this item. It would simply be that the funds would come from the general fund, but we would just like permission to be able to include the Emergency Services District as a plaintiff in such a litigation. And with that, I turn it back over to the Chair and recommend that you approve the item and certainly welcome any comments from the public.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I want to reiterate something that Mr. Dillon said. And there's a line that in the staff backup that says it is estimated that the budget for the litigation exclusive of any appeals is approximately $600,000. I just want anybody who reads that to understand that that was the $600,000 that was approved last week. And as the county attorney said, that this will just add the emergency services district as a nameplate into an already existing lawsuit and not add any more tax dollars to what we're doing. And given that, I'm happy to move staff recommendation.
Got a motion from Commissioner Solari to approve staff recommendation with a second from Commissioner O'Brien. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Now that moves us to 15.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That moves us to 15A3. And Commissioner...
Would you like to take a brief break, Mr. Chairman?
You know what? Let's do that. Let's do it. It's 10:30, so I'll tell you, let's just take a 5-minute break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Meeting will come back to order. We left off on 15A3 regarding the accelerated remediation efforts at the fire stations. I will turn this over to Mr. King. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is John King, Emergency Services Director. On March the 20th, we had a lengthy meeting before this body, and some questions were raised about some issues at the stations, about some mold or other issues at the where it was occurring at the station. Excuse me. And at that meeting, there was more information that the Commission needed, and perhaps we weren't in a position to present all of it at that time. The effort today is to bring some people in that can better explain what's happened since this issue has started and where we're going with this, in an effort to provide more information and answer more questions today. So that's why we're here today.
That's fine.
Also, we have a workers' comp attorney here to explain why the process, why legally it got slowed up, and where we are and what can we do.
Just as long as it's in a manner of not finger pointing, just education.
No, it's education, totally.
All right. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners, Council, Mr. Baird. My name is Mark Hill, and I am an attorney. I'm, in fact, the outside attorney that the county uses for defense of the workers' compensation claims. Just by way of early apology, there's nothing that occurred this morning that isn't imminently more exciting than workers' compensation. But workers' compensation is a system that we all have and use in our system. The workers' compensation system has been around a long time. It's supposed to be a self-executing system. Somebody gets hurt in the scope of their employment, and workers' compensation kicks in. When that works, it's great. When it doesn't, it's bad. And that's what ends up in litigation. If it worked always, every time, I would not have a job and you would not see my face. But that's just not how the process works. The law of workers' compensation is a very, very specialized area of the law, and it requires certain things to be presented in order to process through the system. We are not in the normal litigation system. We don't go in front of county judges and circuit judges. We go in front of workers' compensation judges. And in fact, you guys may not even know this, maybe you do, our workers' compensation judge for this district sits in Sebastian. Most people I say, who? What? Where? I actually worked for the state for 4 years. I was the state mediator in Sebastian, and we handled, I should say, all of the workers' compensation claims for Okeechobee, Indian River, and Brevard County. One judge, one mediator. We did them all.
In Sebastian?
In Sebastian.
They'll be wanting tourist tax dollars next week.
Okay. It's on US 1. Our state office is on US 1, just north of the Wendy's, on the east, on the west side of the... Mm-hmm.
Well, are you allowed to say who the judge is?
Robert Dietz.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Never knew.
Yeah.
So this should go really quick.
Why is that?
Well, if he's only in Sebastian.
There's a lot of timelines that are mandated by the workers' compensation law, requirements of how quickly any given claim must move through the process. And obviously we have our own, because we're out of the constitutional law process, we have our own rules and procedures that we're required to follow. Some of them are fairly generic, some of them are very specialized. As it applies to the cases involving the fire stations, and as it applies to really any personal injury case or any other case where evidence is involved, when you are the possessor of the evidence, you have an obligation, once you're put on notice, to preserve the evidence. If you do not preserve the evidence, you run into what's called a spoliation claim. In other words, by destroying evidence, you extinguish the ability of either side, claimant side or defense side, to gather the evidence that they need to proceed with their case. In this instance, when claims started to come in terms of exposure, as the claims were awarded, as exposure to mold or toxic substances, we were at that moment required to preserve the evidence. which was why my predecessor at my firm, Paul Westcott, advised the county, look, we can no longer remediate these. We are under an obligation to preserve the evidence. In personal injury, it might be a car accident, and it's the car that's the evidence. You cannot take that car and destroy it. You have to preserve it. So that's what occurred in this scenario. And that's not just for us. That's as much for the injured worker side to have their ability to move forward with their claim. And so we were put on notice, not just at the beginning, but again about 2 weeks ago from Jeff Bickler, who's the attorney for the claimants in this case. And the notice came by way of a letter to us: do not destroy the evidence. If you destroy the evidence, you will face a spoliation claim, which means they will have other legal remedies. And in essence, even if we have a valid legal defense to these claims, we will probably lose that defense. Okay? So we have an obligation to preserve the evidence, and that's what occurred here. As a result of that, and that started November-ish, okay, when we first started getting involved in that, and that's when we said, hey, we got to put the brakes on this so that we preserve this. As a result, there have been negotiations going back and forth between my firm and my predecessor, Mr. Westcott, and Jeff Bickler's firm about defining the scope of what these inspections mean. Because frankly, when you get into mold and toxic substances, this is not black and white. This isn't an MRI of a torn rotator cuff. This is complex stuff. So defining the scope of inspection became a difficult and complex process that our experts, actually initially their experts, presented a scope. Our experts thought that scope was significantly too broad. Our experts came back with a different scope. And it took us, unfortunately, until a few weeks ago to agree to a scope. There was some judicial involvement in it originally in terms of allowing the inspections, but then ultimately we were able to agree to a scope of inspection, and that was reduced to a stipulation in a court order. Just to give you the date of it. The court order is dated March 18th. And in that order, it adopted our stipulation for the scope of the inspection, as well as our time frame. And the time frame is stipulated based on the availability of the experts of both the claimants and of the county, that we were able to coordinate an inspection date to start on March 31st, next Tuesday, and go 2 days, 3 if necessary. And again, that stipulation was reduced to a court order, and we are all required to abide by that court order. Now, having said that, based on what I understood occurred on Friday, we got a hold of our expert and said, are you able to come here next week? And basically our expert said, no, I'll be in Canada. I then in turn got a hold of Jeff Bickler and said, Jeff, what is your availability? And he said, well, we're meeting with our expert on Monday morning. I'll call you right after that. And I will tell you that their attorney and I have worked very closely to try to get this done. We have the same interest in getting this done as quickly as possible. So he and I talked yesterday after he met with his expert, and he said, Mark, I cannot get my experts there this week. The earliest they can get there is on Tuesday when it was arranged. So I said, okay. I just want to make sure that we're kind of on the same playing field. So that's where we were left in terms of the inspection process itself. So I guess the first thing I would do is just kind of open up. Do you have any questions about that part of it to this point?
Go ahead. No, go ahead. This is your matter. I'll give you the opportunity to speak first.
One, it took them almost 40 days from December 18th when they requested an independent test, December 18th to January 26th, before they even submitted their first outline of what their scope. So I'm looking at this as, what if the sheriff decided to empty his evidence storage locker and all the weapons and guns that were in there, and he said, just lay them out in the lobby for now, and somebody walked in, picked up one of these guns, and started shooting the deputies, and so now you got a workers' comp case. What you're saying is, according to this, the sheriff would have to leave all those guns laying out in the lobby for 3 months before the attorneys could decide, yeah, we need to come, to a resolution here. To me, it's absurd and unheard of, and it would be a total of 3 months from December 18th to March 18th before we got a court order to move this forward. And again, I think that's absurd and ridiculous. Okay? It seems to me that if the claimant wanted this information, it should have been up to them to expedite it, and so we could bring this to a resolution. And, I understand what you're saying, that there's legal repercussions, but, the only thing I can say is make sure our guy is there on the 31st, and if their guy ain't there, then we're done. I mean, to me, this is totally ridiculous. It's taken 3 months to get to this point. Okay? And it just boggles my mind that we can't get this thing done and address it. So, March 31st, just make sure our guy is there. And if they don't show up, then that's it. They had their chance, court order or not, or whatever. No excuses, nothing. We get it done. I don't know. This is.
I feel your disgust, and it's one of those things. We can't defend it, but so whenever I can't defend it or explain it, it's time to change it. And so I agree with. I mean, I'm looking at the time frame here, and it is the scenario that you use is about like leaving the middle of State Road 60 exactly that way for 90 days until everybody gathers their evidence and does what they need to do for court. And I understand what you're saying, but you wouldn't do State Road 60 this way if it were an accident.
I have a question just to make sure I'm following everything correctly. So this timeline, and we probably need to make this timeline available or copies of it available to those who want to look at it. So we have December 3rd, county receives first workman's compensation claim alleged indoor air quality issues at Station 10. Then on 15 days later, claimant's attorney requests that the county allow them to conduct independent inspection tests at the stations. So from December, and this is the union's person. What was his name again?
The tester?
No, their attorney.
Jeff Bickler. Jeff Bickler? Correct.
Sprinkler.
GEOFF.
Okay, so on December 18th, they say they want to test, but it takes them a month, not quite a month and a half, for them to send a scope to us that includes that they want to test for bed bugs. I don't know if that has to do with mold. Noise decibel test, what does that have to do with mold? Structural analysis and testing, what does that have to do with mold? I don't see the relevancy of why they threw all this in. If they wanted to get the mold test, they just should have said mold, period. And we would have been December 19th probably, not January 26th. So I see why, so then we got into the back and forth between sides. Those things are not relative to the mold, so you had to go back and forth to get the scope modified. So we actually, who went to the judge to get the stip entered that said the testing will move forward with just the mold? Did we do that?
In terms of recently? Yes, I filed a motion for a protective order and a motion to define scope of inspection.
So we took the initiative to move the mold testing forward and not keep this back and forth nonsense. So that's good. Now,
I also would like to point out for the public that we did, as soon as the stations we got complaints, that's why we have September of last year, we had testing for mold in all those stations. That's why you've got, and the commission really needs to read those mold studies.
Also, it looks like in the pictures that since the remediation work was started, cabinets were removed, at least in some of the pictures. It looked like what areas behind maybe where the sink was or a faucet or valve or something was. So that was, I don't want to say covered up, but it was covered by the cabinetry, or I don't know, was one of them a kitchen area where that in the picture it looks like there's a pipe and some stuff coming out of the wall, that there might have been something installed in there.
I'm not exactly sure what that was.
That's a union picture. We don't know where that is.
Okay. All right. So now we've got it down to the mold. Now, is this the swab test that they asked for, or are they going to revisit the indoor air quality over a series of days where the space has to be closed off for indoor air quality?
Let me explain the inspection process as best as I understand it, not being a scientist. There will be a small variety. We've narrowed it down to 5 subject areas that they will do their testing on. But essentially, there's going to be air trap that detects spores in the air, along with some physical testing where they use typically tape to remove samples. Okay, how they're going to do it? Understand that I don't control their expert beyond the fact that they're not allowed to use any destructive measures. How they actually do their testing, I don't know. I've actually requested that so that our expert, who's going to shadow their expert, will be better prepared for that. But I can't control that. They can do their testing the way they want to, so long as they're not destructive. Time frame. Both sides assume that it should be able to be completed in the 2 days. 2 stations on Tuesday and 2 stations on Wednesday, about 2 to 3 hours per station. The only reason we also reserved Thursday is if some unforeseen event occurs, weather, whatever. The air sampling, and if you, I think you've been supplied the 4 test results from AMEC that have already been done. When they do air spore sampling, they do inside compared to outside, right? Because it's the only way to get any kind of relevant results. Because these things exist in nature, they are everywhere. The question is, to what degree? And the only way you kind of figure that out is by comparing the outside sampling to the inside sampling. And that's why when you look through those reports, it goes through each room inside. And then there were 2 external air samplings. So weather could mess that up. I frankly haven't even looked at the weather next week. I'm hoping that doesn't mess us up. But the fact is I can't control that.
Okay. That way you have a control outside and inside.
Yes.
Sample of the 2.
Yes.
Now, was there any other workplace exposures or non-workplace exposures for these workers that tested positive that should be also at some point checked?
You know, that's a good question. And I'm gonna answer.
I think really,
I just want to make sure we get everything done, all our bases.
And that's going to be up to them.
Okay.
That's more
what I'd like to know is, when are we getting them tested? When are we going to be done? And when can we go in there and start working?
The stipulation, and therefore order enforcing that stipulation, requires that as soon as their expert gives us a written notification that they're done, which should occur hopefully Wednesday or Thursday next week, as soon as that occurs, the county is allowed to begin remediation and repair. And so I will notify the county.
Actually, continue remediation.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yes.
So
as soon as I get that, I will notify the county.
Okay.
And I think that's the important thing to state here. I think we're all frustrated by how long this has taken, obviously. But the good news is 8 or 9 days from today, the testing should be done. And we will mobilize our contractor as soon as possible thereafter to get it done. And they will be using the proper methods and all that stuff. We're going to have a mold remediation specialist, licensed mold remediation specialist, advising them on their practices. We're also going to bring AMEC back in, as they recommended in their report, to do air quality testing after the repairs have been done. So we've had the air quality testing done. We plan to have the remediation activity done, overseen by a mold remediation specialist, and then an additional round of air quality testing after the work is done to make sure that any issues have been resolved.
And so, how soon after somebody pulls a test can they say, okay, yes, we got the information that we needed?
Well, the testing is the first part, where they simply collect the samples.
Right.
They will then send that off to whoever they're going to send that off to. But once the samples are collected, then they're supposed to send me notification that they have completed their sampling, and we can move forward.
All right. And so we don't need to wait till we get the this is my concern, is basically for some reason the test kit was broken on one of them for one side or the other. And so we don't have to wait till we get the information back. Just basically, we get a determination that they have gotten the samples and they're off to wherever they go, and then we should be able to start.
My answer to that is that's going to be my advice to the county. Can I guarantee that they don't come back in 2 weeks and say, oh my gosh, stop the presses? I can no more do that than
okay.
Stop.
Now, where's that putting us then about destroying the evidence scene?
All I can say is that my argument to the judge would be, Judge, we complied with your order, which states that as soon as we got written confirmation that their process was complete, we moved forward.
All right.
And will we be doing any additional testing at the same time that their expert's doing theirs?
Yes, our expert is going to mirror theirs.
I don't want to suggest to do redundant that you collect two of everything, so if one is bad, you have a backup sample, but that's just...
I don't know how, I don't want to be in the remediation mode testing.
That's what your expert's going to determine.
Yeah, we could, that's...
And then once we get the process to go ahead, each of these stations in question, how many of them have contract services, or do we have under contract services at which stations? And then do they have a number of days work schedule that if we told them, hey, you can start next Friday, can we add an expedite to work overtime or through the weekend or whatever to...
Yeah, the majority of the work on two of the stations, with the problems of the roof, the leaking, the roofs have been completed. It's now cleaning up the areas that were damaged due to the moisture from the leaks.
The roof leak.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Yes, Dylan.
If I may, and the board may get this, but I just want to make sure I understand the significance. Your comment earlier was that their expert was not available on March 31st, or was it our expert not available on March 31st?
Neither.
Okay.
They're both available on March 31st. They were not available to come early this week.
Thank you.
And just if anybody would like one, I've got, I don't know that the public has these, but if y'all would like one, you can have mine.
So back to the question, we have under contract services to do remediation work at 1, 7, 10, and 11, or no? I know two of them had the new roof.
We have contract services has been contracted to do the work at stations 10 and 11. Those two stations had roof leaks. We had those fixed last year. They were completed about November, December time period. On both of those stations, contract services started the work in December. They stopped in accordance with the direction. That's who would complete the work. I don't anticipate it would take a long time. If there's a need to expedite it, we've certainly conveyed our eagerness and the urgency to get this work done. If there's something that's needed, we can have them expedite that work. The other two stations, stations 1 and station 7, there's more extensive work that's needed. If you'll recall, I think it was in December, the board approved a design agreement with Barth Construction to do a substantial renovation at Station 1. We anticipate that work is going to be over $750,000 of work. That is going to take longer to do. So stations 10 and 11, once this testing is done, we'll have contract services in there. That work should be done very soon. Stations 1 and 7, it's a bit longer. So station 1, what we're looking at is Barth is currently working on the design. We'll bring back a contract for construction for station 1 to this board as soon as that is ready, and move forward with that. Station 7, if you'll recall, the board approved moving the staff out of Station 7 to a different location, to a modular unit back in February. We are working on getting that done. The rationale there is there's not. We decided it wasn't worth putting the $500,000 into that station that would be needed. I think the union president expressed his agreement with that he didn't think it was worth that. So we're in agreement on that, and we're planning to move the staff out of there into modular facilities as soon as we can, and then we'll have a long-term solution for Station 7 that we think will be in a better location for providing service, and would be a new station with the current template of how we build our stations today. Station 1 is going to be that heavy renovation. We think a modular unit may be necessary there between now and when the construction's complete there. So we would be looking at modular units on 1 and 7 for the longer, or not for the long term, but for while a solution is resolved at those two locations.
The board will recall that with respect to Station 1, that station was first opened in 1983, and the building codes have changed substantially since that station was opened. In the CIE, we have $750,000 for that project. You're helping us march through that project, but there's major upgrades would include ADA bathrooms, the ingress, egress, ramps, and those kinds of things were not built in the original station. So I think that a modular may be necessary there, but I'm agreeing with Jason. I think that we can get through stations 10 and 11 reasonably quickly, perhaps faster doing the renovations that are necessary. We can get that done quicker than bringing a modular in, because it's not just drop shipping a modular. I have to get electricity, I have to get utilities hooked up to it. It's not just a drop ship. It's much more complex. And so I think that we can work around those. But I know that I'm not standing alone here, but I'm telling you that there's nobody wants this project done more quickly than I do. And we all want this thing moving forward. We want to do the testing done, take care of our staff, and get back into emergency services quickly.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the public? John, welcome.
John O'Connor, President, IFF Local 2201. I find it ironic that the members of this board find it, they're disgusted with the testing process and the delays. I am equally disgusted in the fact that we've had roof leaks documented since 2006 and nothing being done about them until we put 300 taxpayers in this room coming after the board demanding some results. And now we're getting some reaction from the board. The first priority, obviously, I would say to my membership is to get them out of the buildings as soon as possible. Testing is obviously secondary. What is the board's plan in removing our members out of these stations, especially during some of the remediation, because we had members in Station 11 living there while people were doing remediation, and they weren't doing it correctly. That's why we filed the work stoppage. So what does the board have in response to that?
I don't, Station 10, 11, actually 11's a newer station. When you look at it, it's one of our newer stations. Unfortunate, this building's had a roof leak. Do you want me to move everyone out of here? Just going to ask you. And we've had roof problems here too, and mold problems there due to roof leaks. And it's an unfortunate thing when it does occur. We think it'll be very quick with 11 and 1 to get them fixed properly.
No.
I mean 10, 11. I'm sorry, 10, 11. Yeah. Now 1, we're probably looking at modulars for 1 and 7, and we want to move as quickly as possible, like we always did. We've gone. I've been around. Unfortunately, remember our old county administration building? It was full of leaks and mold, and it took 10 years. But we will do this. We will move as quickly as possible. We are concerned about the employees. It's very obvious, and I think you, as commission, really need to read the air quality studies. I think we've got to be careful. We're making more. We've got to correct this quickly. The quickest way to do it is just let us get the contractor in there and do it right. And the contractor is a professional that knows what he's doing. I don't know, and I guess John's a contractor. He must be licensed, I'm sure, and do the right thing. I mean, that's what we want. I think we need to listen to the experts.
Joe, John, I think that basically where things sit right now is that we've got to ask the commissioners, once this gets done on this testing, are y'all convinced that we're going about this as fast as we possibly can at this point?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and my understanding is that the contractor has certified mold remediation and removal, and for 10 and 11 we already have the contract ready to go, and so as soon as we get the testing done, we're in there.
And John, I guess really where it sits is I don't know that we could do anything any faster than this. I mean, as far as putting a modular unit out there or anything to those lines, by the time we get it all permitted and done, this should be complete. as far as not just the testing. I'm not looking at taking very long to get the work done on the inside.
I commit to this board, too, that I'll be more than willing to do updates to this commission for make it a matter of record where we are, what's transpired, and how fast we're progressing through this process. But I think we're all like-minded. We just want it fixed.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We're not waiting on anything, it's my understanding, on getting the modules in on 1 and 7. I mean, we're starting that process.
We're starting that process
now. We
yes.
already have started that process already, and we're going to get the modules in as soon as possible. Understanding what you said about it takes time to get the utilities hooked up, the electric hooked up, all that type of stuff.
And just to advise the board, too, Station 1 is the station that has the most number of employees. We knew the renovation was coming anyway, and I have a temporary plan. Brian and I have been working on a temporary plan about moving some of those employees to other locations temporarily while we're doing the work, outside of any mold discussion, just for the operational need of the group.
Well, can you accelerate moving those employees to the other locations now?
Yes.
Okay, then it would be good to accelerate that to get them out of the station as soon as you can and not wait for anything further, and then to just make sure that the modulars come as soon as they can get there and not let any other activity slow that process down.
I certainly agree, sir.
John, does that answer on 10 and 11? But it's going to take us about as long to fix it as it is to relocate and to make accommodations on that, as we're being told.
You're doing the best you can with what we have right now. Currently, I'm glad that you're actually recognizing the problem and trying to fix it somehow. I think that the board needs to take account of the personal issues and the personal attacks from the county administrator towards me. I mean, I'm up here trying to represent membership, trying to get things done properly, and that's not a way that
I agree.
Staff is supposed to be, acknowing or working together.
I didn't mean to make a personal attack. I just said that there's experts.
We had enough of this last week. John, I'll let you have my book, though. I don't know if you have this information.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Basically, it's the inspection reports and everything. We asked for some information Friday, and they gave that to us for today's meeting. So I'll be more than happy to share that with you.
Okay. The only other thing is if that we do have some concerns if the people. Typically, what happens is when somebody gets moved from one location to another, usually staff, in the spirit of conserving funds, they'll move all types of other products from those stations into the other modular units. Those particular, like the furniture specifically, if you have chairs that are fabric or something that can't be remediated or cleaned, I would caution the board in making sure that whatever's going into these stations after they're fixed or whatever's going into those modular units is either cleaned and or replaced, because all this stuff, these mycotoxins and these mold spores, can be taken right into these new buildings. So you're just taking one problem and putting it into another building. So I would consider or recommend that the board at least considers getting with their experts and figure out what's the correct way to get that done.
I commit to this board. I'll work with the experts that we've hired to give us some guidance, and I'll make whatever actions necessary to try to comply with the experts who are specialized in this.
Okay. And John, in that process, make sure everybody's aware of what the experts are recommending.
Absolutely.
There's nothing to hide here. Let's get this done.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for your time. If I would, I'll grab that book from you.
Yeah, come on.
And then, Mr. Chairman, so 10 and 11 are under contract to get the work done, and those seems like those will get done pretty quick. If 1 and 7 or one of the other station tests positive, we should have the relocation plan sort of as if they test positive, they've got to be out within X number of hours or days, 72, 48, something like that. So we need to have the plan of, Station 1's, there's more room on the footprint to put something temporarily. Station 7, look, in the back right-hand corner, not optimum. We'd have to grant ourselves a waiver for setback rules or whatever.
We just gave that to P&Z.
I've driven the 60 corridor since we talked about moving them temporarily somewhere, and I've given you a couple of addresses, and then I went back to look at them and that's probably not going to work. And I don't know on 7, do you have any good prospects of where to move to, or are you still looking?
I have looked at the sites that you gave me to go look at, and some of them were a little constricted.
Right.
And the ingress-egress caused some pause with that. However, I have been working with some real estate groups to try to find what is available in the area. I've looked at the property just south of CBS, and the county helped put in the water and the sewer out there, but the owner of the property this time was not willing to do us a short-term lease. I've also had some contacts with some folks who have some property on the north side of the outlet mall. There's some opportunities there, and there's some property owners that's just a little bit to the west of there that might be willing to help us. So we're trying to explore all avenues, trying to keep our costs down, recognizing that when we moved Station 7, the reason for the move primarily was an operational need to improve our delivery of services. And we believe that Station 7 needs to be closer to the 95 and State Road 60 intersection, but not in an area where ingress-egress is a problem. And so if we can get a temporary in that area until we can firm up a firm location for the future Station 7, I think that's the best that we're going to be able to do. And I think that we're doing all the right things at this point to try to satisfy the needs.
Okay, and there's not well, I guess if 7 tested clean, we still want to get them logistically in a better response area because of the call demand, especially on the EMS side. If it does, if it does test positive, we've really got to find something very quick, shorter order.
Yeah.
As you recall, that's one of the few stations we have west of 43rd Avenue.
Right.
And so that's why it's very important that we firm that up reasonably quick, because if I had to double staff a station, it's certainly going to delay delivery of services, anything in that western corridor.
Okay. And that site's also very constrained to do anything. We couldn't. It's very constrained. We can't expand the station.
You can't put a modular right there on that.
Yeah, it's a half acre.
Very constrained. Even if we wanted to tear it down, put a whole new station, the site's not big enough.
Yeah.
Right. With the projected growth on 82nd Avenue, widening of the road, and the limited piece of property we have, even if we went to a 2-story station, I still think that that is not where we need to spend our money going forward.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Any other comments?
Not quick enough, but I don't know how to make it any quicker, I guess, is what we're boxed into. 10, 11, that's pretty smooth. It's the 1 and 7, and depending, I guess, on what the test results are, is how much faster we need to work to get people out in a safer environment. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I don't think there was any motion on anything like that. That was as much information as anything else. Commissioners, if I'm not mistaken, that concludes the agenda, and if there's no further business to
For the record, would it reflect that the chairman is adjourning this meeting at 11:11? Congratulations.
Thank you.
And if anybody else needs a copy of this book, I'll be happy to share mine.